Hi, welcome to Me, You, and Who. On today's episode, we are talking with Hillary and Carrie, two intended parents that met through the donor sibling registry and found out that they had chosen the same egg donor. They have since become fast friends. Their children have met each other, and they are really big proponents of sharing their story and inspiring any intended parent that is looking at using a donor in order to create their family and inspiring other women who perhaps want to be a donor to show that without them, they wouldn't have the amazing family that they have. So please enjoy listening to Hillary and Carrie. Me, you, and who? Who knew it would take more than two people to have a baby? In a world where infertility is no longer a taboo topic, this podcast will take you through all the different aspects of surrogacy and egg donation through the lens of many who walk this journey in different ways. My name is Whitney Hall, and I am a two-time surrogate, now turned surrogacy coordinator for Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions, the very agency I used when I chose to carry for two amazing families. With this podcast, it is our goal to help guide and support you as you learn about what it takes to grow a family in an alternative way, as well as hear inspiring and beautiful stories of how this path has changed lives forever. We can't wait for you to hear about just one more way happy families are created every day. Well, you guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really, really appreciate it. I mean, y'all's story is just so magical and lovely. And so I'm just pumped to talk to you guys. So I guess first question, just kind of get us started. Tell us about yourselves. Who are you?
You go ahead, Carrie.
Me first. Who am I?
Who are
Why
you?
am I
here?
So Carrie, I live in Austin with my husband, Jeremy, and we have three kids. Willow, who is 12, seventh grade, and twins, Zoe and Cooper, who are first graders and are 7 years old now. So we call ourselves the Crazy Train. It is not boring in our house. We also adopted a puppy last year. So it is not boring around here. I'm a lawyer. I do energy law, and then I have a political organization kind of on the side. So things are always busy around here.
Always busy. Oh man. We got a puppy the same week that we were potty training my eldest. Let me just say the almost 2-year-old did better than the puppy. I'm just saying.
Mine was the opposite. And our rule was we're not getting a dog until everybody can wipe their own butts in this house.
Absolutely. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. Hillary, what about you? Tell us.
So I'm Hillary. I live in Fort Worth. My husband and Jared and I just celebrated our 20-year anniversary last October. We have one daughter, Corinne. She's about to turn 8 in a few days. And I know, Carrie, shake her head. It's hard to believe it's gone by. It's gone by so fast. But we worked with EDS in 2014, had our daughter in 2015, and she's just a blast and a joy. We have a lot of fun together as a family. I work in PR, and then I also work with EDS a little bit on some intended parent education through blogs and webinars.
Yeah, you do.
And that work is really, it's been a passion project for me for a couple of years now, because I feel like, I've had quite the journey from how I felt when I first learned that we were going to need an egg donor to create our family, to where I feel now, right, as the mom of an 8-year-old. And I just know that for a lot of intended parents, that's a hard journey. So I just want to, offer support and insight wherever I can, because there's a lot more resources now than there were when I was going through it.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly it doesn't seem, 8 doesn't seem that long ago. And obviously there was a journey even before she came Earthside. And so, yeah, absolutely. So what ultimately for the both of you led you to egg donation and looking into that as a way to grow your family? Either one.
Well, for me, it was actually started a long time ago in 2007. I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. I was 27. I was lucky in that it was caught early, but the surgery and chemotherapy that I had from that ultimately led to infertility. So my husband and I were on what I call the infertility roller coaster for several years, the ups and the downs of
Yeah.
trying different treatments, getting your hopes up, then it not working. And so after I was ultimately diagnosed with diminished ovarian reserve. So my ovarian reserve was like my AMH was practically non-existent. So after a failed IVF round where I didn't even make it to the egg retrieval because there weren't enough eggs, I didn't even make it to egg retrieval. That's when my doctor suggested that we look into egg donation.
Okay.
So ours, I forget what years anything happened at this point, but I mean, I remember how old I was. I had just finished law school, and we had been married about a year, and I was 31. I was 31. And nothing, we'd been trying for a year or so and nothing was happening, and so went to the doctor, and I just clearly remember they're like, oh, you're young, we'll run some tests, don't worry about those, and
Sure.
we can
Sure.
we'll fix you right if we get pregnant, no problem. and and I remember I had graduated from law school, and I was actually back in Texas studying for the bar exam when like all my test results came back. And I remember the doctor, we'd been referred to this. It was a teaching hospital. George Washington University has a teaching infertility clinic, and it was small, and they were fantastic. And I just remember him saying, he was like, "Don't Google anything."
Oh, geez, that's
Right?
great.
And I had, I mean, and I guess I hadn't realized that was your official diagnosis, Hillary, or I'd forgotten that, but that's what my diagnosis was. Totally out of the blue. There was no reason behind mine. I had not, gone through cancer treatments or anything like that would provide a reason for my severely diminished ovarian reserve. But that was at 31, and he told me that, I mean, I would be probably 5% chance of having a baby even with IVF. And so it was pretty shocking at, 31 to get this kind of information. And we did 4 rounds of IVF there.
Oh my gosh.
The first one, I got pregnant and then miscarried at 9 or 10 weeks. So you go through this whole thing. And I got like 2 eggs. Like it was all just like, every sort of precious little thing. And then I did 2 more rounds and didn't make it to egg retrieval, and they got converted to IUIs. And then the 4th one, we got, it worked, and we got Willow. And then it took me a long time. I mean, it's such a hard process, like emotionally, and I felt really isolated. I was a new lawyer. I didn't tell my firm what I was going through. So I was a first year lawyer at this big firm. And I really don't know to this day how I hid going to all those doctor's appointments. And I managed to do it.
So I have a meeting off campus.
Right, exactly. I was like, I'm going for coffee, whatever. It just added to the stress. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been worried about it. But it took me a long time, and she was 2 years old before I could really even comprehend going back into that emotional space. And by that time I was 36, I think 35, 36. I would have been like 36. And so we went to a clinic here in Austin and had a not great experience. Well, just because, I mean, I'm a hard case, right? I mean, I present, like, my ovaries thought that they were much older than I was, and I was very resistant to them telling me the only thing you could do is go to donor egg. And we tried another 3 rounds, and then sort of, I had exhausted all other options in my view. And it was really hard for me to get my head around that this is how we were going to have to complete our family. And we were with a different egg donation agency at first, and that was not a good experience. And we had used a lawyer here in Austin, Simi Denson, who is just amazing. And she was also a surrogate, at least once, maybe twice, and had triplets as a surrogate.
Oh, wow.
And she's a lawyer that specializes in directed agreements for surrogacy and for egg donation.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some red flags for her when she was helping us with the first one. And then, she sort of gently, when that kind of fell apart, gently recommended EDS. And so we were really grateful that we got connected to this egg donation agency and found our donor pretty quickly. After all of the heartache and everything that happened, the time from when we signed with EDS to when we got to egg retrieval was like 8 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's fast.
It was super fast. It just, and then I had a positive pregnancy. I mean, literally 9 weeks after we signed, because it was, 9, maybe 10 weeks at max. And
my gosh.
And it was
talk about an infertility roller coaster, man.
Yeah. And, and that one too, it was, working with like a 20-something-year-old donor, and she had donated before. And we talked to her just on like Skype or something before we, just to sort of get a sense of her, because I was feeling really burned by relying on other people to trust them. And just really wanted to see this person that was going to impact our lives so greatly. But yeah, so that's, and then, and I remember the doctor telling us, he's like, I know what the statistics are. Cause I was like, put back 2 embryos. We got 19 eggs, like 14 embryos. It was bananas. I'd done 7 rounds and never got that many total.
Right.
And I remember him saying, he's like, I know what the statistics are, but he's like, I'm telling you, if you transfer 2 embryos, you're going to get 2 babies.
We just know it.
Well, and that's what.
Oh, go ahead.
That's what really helped us make the decision too. Because like Carrie said, there's some emotion, especially if you've been through infertility. I think there's some things that you have to work through, and there's a point that you have to get to where you're comfortable and confident with moving forward with this being your path to parenthood. I think on the flip side of it now, it not only is better for you personally, it's going to be better for your child, because any insecurities and things that if you're still holding on to that, that's not going to be, that's not going to be passed on to your child. But I was going to say, the timing was pretty quick for us too, once we chose our donor. But it was really what kind of the deciding factor for me was my doctor just laying out the statistics. It was the same doctor who had diagnosed me with ovarian cancer. So I felt like I had a good relationship with him. I trusted him. I kind of, because once he did the initial fertility test and knew that we were going to have problems conceiving, he referred us off to a fertility specialist. But at a certain point, I came back to him and was talking to him during one of my just annual appointments, and was kind of telling him, all the different things we tried, and the egg donation had been recommended, and I was kind of struggling with it. And he said, well, he's like, what do you want? Do you want to be a mom? He was like, if you want to be a mom, you want to be able to carry your baby, this is your chance. I mean, the chance of continuing to try and maybe get like a couple of eggs doing IVF. Me and my husband was with a donor. I think it was like 75 or 80% chance of success. I mean, the difference was huge.
Yeah. So what was that like for both of you? You each went through these rounds of IVF. You each kind of had that hope and that fall and, just all of that. And then all of a sudden it's sort of like okay, if I ever want to carry a baby, I'm going to have to rely completely on someone else. And then throw in, so not only are you kind of, struggling with just, gosh, this isn't going the typical quote unquote way. So you're struggling with that. And now throw in the fact that like, there's this whole DNA factor that isn't even a thing anymore. Like what was kind of that emotional struggle, and how did you work through that?
It's interesting because, Hillary and I have, I already, Willow is my egg. So I share DNA with her. And so it was, I knew what that difference was, I don't know, intellectually or whatever, knowing that, she looks like me, and as she gets older, she looks exactly like me.
She's totally your mini me.
It's
100%.
Yeah. And then, not having just, you do that part is missing, and how much, I had to really sort of, make peace with that just on for myself. And this is going to sound, I don't know how it's going to sound, but I remember reading this article, and we'd already sort of made the decision, and I, made that peace, and I wanted siblings for Willow, and we knew that, we wanted more children. There was an article that, the scientists or whatever had figured out that when you're pregnant, some of the baby's DNA like lingers in the mother's bloodstream for forever. And they'd actually found like older siblings' DNA in younger siblings, like it transfers to subsequent pregnancies too.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so for some reason that sticks out, that really just sort of confirmed I was, that was like the little piece of science or whatever, that we're all still connected to the DNA thing. And that, that was the thing for me that I was like, okay, this is all going to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Hillary? I mean, I know the doctor just asked you, like, you just want to be a mom.
Yeah. I mean, that was really it for me. And I think it was because it was my OBGYN who had been he had been my doctor at that point. What, probably 8 years, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, that's really what it just made me, I don't know. It's like a light bulb went off, and it just made it click for me. But, I mean, it was an emotional journey for sure. Cause I remember, the first time that the fertility doctor recommended egg donation, I just kind of looked at him like, I didn't know what he was talking. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I in theory understand what that is, but you're going to have to explain like logistically to me how that works. And we were sitting in his office with this little conference table, and he literally reaches over and pulls out this binder, and it was of donors, and he starts flipping through the book.
Oh
and
my gosh.
like, well, you would, go through a book like this, or you would go through an online database, and you would, choose a donor. And I legit felt like he was telling me, you got to pick your replacement. I felt like it felt like looking at dating profiles. It was so surreal. I felt like Jared and I were sitting there looking, and we were like, I was like, okay, you got to pick another woman to have a baby with your husband. I mean, sorry, that's what it felt like for me. It's a lot. That's a lot to process. And so it took a little, I was overwhelmed at first. And so it took, just kind of, working through that and realizing, I'm still going to be the mom. I am 100% the mom. I've never felt, ever since I found out I was pregnant, never felt different. Not for 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a hurdle. There's hurdles to get there for sure.
So
egg donation comes on the table. Obviously there's so many, things out there. You can go with an agency, you can do an independent journey, you can do frozen, egg bank situation through your fertility clinic or associated fertility clinics. What led you all to doing what you ultimately did, which was choose a donor and have a fresh donation and, all of that?
For me, it was, it really came down to wanting, I didn't want to do anonymous donation. I wanted at least a semi-open, arrangement. Not, that doesn't happen with a frozen bank. Not all agencies are willing to do this. And like Carrie, I really wanted to meet our donor because to me, this was really personal. And I couldn't imagine going through this process and not having at least had a conversation with her. And so working with EDS, we were able to do that.
Yeah.
Very similar. And, Hillary and I were just talking the other night that I guess the standard is moving more towards things that, she and Jared and Jeremy and I were independently looking for this process, that at the time, we were told that we were real outliers asking for those things, and it was going to limit our options of donors that would be willing to work with us. And I just thought that was crazy at the time for a lot of the same reasons. And for me, it was like, we're creating people who are going to grow up and be people. And I didn't think we had the right to make decisions that would foreclose their opportunity to know their story. It's not my story. It's going to be the kids that, grow up to be people. And, part of that was probably informed because my husband was adopted at birth. And, we've since, he has reconnected with his birth mother and, that part of his, genetic history. But it wasn't until, I just think it's weird. People deserve to know who they are and where they come from. And, maybe the kids wouldn't care, but, that gets to be their choice. And, and this was right on the cusp of like right before the DNA really eliminated. There is no anonymity anymore. There shouldn't be any expectation, but there was still, this was 8 years ago when I was doing this. Like that doesn't seem that long ago, but with how quickly technology and things change, like that's totally flipped now. And in my opinion, for the better. And we, because we wanted similar things, like we wanted a semi, open, whatever. We weren't really looking for a relationship specifically, but we wanted the option to be able to reach out to the donor, for any medical history, and then wanted someone who would be open once any resulting children were 18, if they were interested in meeting her, that she would, be open to that. Those are really our two big requirements. And we could not, some of the fertility clinics, as y'all know, have their own egg donors just that are signed up with that clinic, but not a single clinic we talked to would do that. They all insisted on 100% anonymous. And the first agency that we were with also insisted on 100% anonymous. And it was just it just was not a good fit for us. So for us, finding an independent agency gave us more options and EDS seemed aligned with us just philosophically on that. And so that just was, that was a really easy choice for us.
Did it ever occur to you, like when did, I guess, the thought of, these little people that we're raising are going to have these big, deep connections in the world to other people that I haven't even met? I mean, they're siblings. Like, when did that kind of come into play? And then ultimately you guys share a donor. Yeah. So how did that happen, or how did that grow your story?
We picked the same donor. We didn't know each other at the time. So everyone, we met each other afterwards. And I think that our donor donated 5 times. And I think
donated 5 times.
Yeah.
And but we're the only one. I mean, we've both separately connected with our donor, but Carrie's kids are the only donor siblings that I know of for Corinne. Well, with the exception of our donor does now have her own child, so that's another half sibling.
Yeah.
But so similar to Carrie, we were, pretty adamant. We wanted a way to have contact in the future for all the reasons that Carrie mentioned. And so we had the donor sibling registry written into our agreement. But I didn't do anything with it for 2 years, because it's like once I had my daughter, I was just in that, I was in that first year of crazy and trying to figure it all out. I don't know how you did it with twins.
Wait, newborns take up time? What?
And a 5-year-old.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but for those that don't know, what is the donor sibling registry? What is that?
So it's a website that facilitates connections without giving away identifying information. So that's important because you don't have to exchange identifying information unless you choose to. It's all done through, unique username and password. But it facilitates connections between intended parents and donors, between donor siblings, like the way Carrie and I connected, and between donor conceived people and their donors.
So you just 23andMe before all, or Ancestry. I was like before all of that, but for donors conceived people. And
yes. But I think, I've heard the donor conceived community. I mean, I'm sure there were, there's a whole generation of donor conceived people, right? A couple of generations. Either I didn't go looking for it when we were first going through the process the way that I have now, or they've just become much more of a vocal and collective group. I think it's a little bit of both, but I have just heard some really sad stories about people finding out that they were donor conceived because they took a DNA test. And I just can't imagine how traumatic that is. I can't imagine how heartbreaking that is. Just think about the loss of trust and then identity. And so I didn't ever want a future child of mine to go through that. I couldn't picture it. So that's why we did it. And, but again, didn't do, so I always knew that there was a potential for, donor siblings because our donor had donated once. She was a proven donor when we worked with her. So she had already done a cycle. So I already knew we were the second.
We were
y'all were the
fourth,
third,
fifth.
fourth.
Yeah.
So we knew that there was a potential for siblings. I didn't do anything with it until Corinne was around 2 years old. And then I really started thinking about it again, got curious. So I just went on. So I signed up for a lifetime membership on the donor sibling registry, went on, EDS was on there, Donors ID was on there. And then, immediately it populated. There was a message that Carrie had posted that she had boy-girl twins born in 2015. And then she had actually posted a couple of pictures. I think they were babies. They were like 8 or 9 months old, I think, in the picture. And I just, I remember looking, going like one, they're 8 months younger than my daughter. So they're the same age. And 2, wow, they look alike.
They look a lot alike.
And then I read into my husband. I was like, she has 2 siblings. I was like, oh my gosh, look. I'm like, and then it was kind of like, okay, we gotta do something about it now. So I sent Carrie a message through the platform and said that I had a daughter born 8 months before her twins. I said, pretty sure they're siblings.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, so what? It sounds like you were just excited. Like, did you have any residual waves of anything, or were you just like, I knew this would happen. This is exciting.
For me, I didn't, for some reason, it didn't really, I was very focused on their interest and availability to know anything about the donor.
Sure.
For some reason, it didn't really occur to me that there would be an opportunity for them to know any other donor siblings, right? I know that sounds weird, but at the time, we wrote the donor sibling registry into our directed agreement, which required the donor to sign up, and we paid for both lifetime, things on there. And I had wrote that on there and sent her a message through Donor Sibling Registry, the donor, shortly after the twins were born. Just, like, I just felt such gratitude after this long journey, and just wrote her a nice little note and sent the pictures. And really, I didn't have a sense of if she would be interested or, anything. I didn't want to sort of, put that on her if she wasn't. But I, just for me, I was like, here's the information. Thank you so much. And, our family's complete. And so it was a really nice surprise. I think, let's see. So the twins, you said Corinne was already 2 when you emailed me?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they were.
It all went together around there.
What is time? We don't know.
They were all pretty little, because I was thinking it was earlier than that, because when you first emailed, it was another like 6 or 8 months before we really kind of talked. I think we just sort of gave some basic information and didn't share, email addresses or names or anything like that for a while. So I was thinking twins were like 6 months old. And then by the next year, which then they would have been like a year and a half, and Corinne was 2, was when, we met. We exchanged emails for real and some more information. And because Corinne was probably about 2.5, maybe summer of 2017. Does that sound right? Or do I have my years off? Was it 2018 when we met in person the first time?
I think it was 2018. So she would have just turned 3.
3. And then would have been 2.5. Somewhere
they were still super young.
They were young. Yeah.
They were very little.
What led you guys to, you match on, or you see each other, you see your messages, you kind of exchange, oh yeah, my kid's related to your kids. Like, that's exciting.
It's weird, right?
What led you to wanting to meet and foster a relationship? How did that come into play?
I think it was curiosity at first, because, like Carrie, I initially did the donor sibling registry because of our donor. I mean, like I knew donor siblings was a possibility. I 100% did not expect to go on and find that and find them. I kind of wanted to see if our donor had registered, and I was thinking about reaching out to her. But initially it was just it was curiosity, because and maybe we've only got one child, so Corinne's an only child in our family, and I was just kind of curious what similarities and things might exist.
Sure. What about you, Carrie?
I mean, same, all of that. And, at least, in the little, the email exchanges that we'd had, similar, experiences. And, I think at the very beginning, just, really curious. And the first time that we met, we were in Houston visiting my husband's parents. And I think, Hillary, y'all had family somewhere close to that you were visiting. And so we made plans to meet for dinner, just the 2 couples, without the kids. And I think we went to sushi, right?
We did.
And just kind of got to know each other, compared stories, I think just, to see how things went. And then we invited Hillary and her family to come over, I think, the next day, to come hang out, and so for the kids to meet each other at my in-laws' house. And my in-laws, they are the sweetest, most wonderful people, but, they come from a different generation. They adopted both of their sons, and it was completely, expectation of anonymity. Like, they never in their wildest dreams imagined that, that this was possible, or this was something that, we would be doing. And they're nothing but gracious, but they were just like, okay, what's
hot. What else?
Yeah, they're but they, it was so wonderful to see the kids together, because they are, they were all around the same age. And then, big sister Willow, and to see, the similarities, we could see, like, they walked similarly, like, their at the time, I thought Cooper and Corinne looked the most alike. Like they were just sort of mirror images of each other.
Oh,
It was, it was wild. But I mean, the kids didn't really understand. Like we could,
no, it's
you
a
know,
play date.
it was just play date, and they sort of got along, and it was just this wonderful experience of this expansion of family, sort of made possible. This would not have been possible 10, 15 years ago, even. Like, it's amazing to me that not only that, egg donation made our family complete, that it actually expanded, our family. Like, we consider Hillary and Jared and Corinne, part of that family. And I don't know, it's just really cool.
Oh, that's so magical.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I think it's great that our kids are related. I love that we consider you guys family to 100%. But just a nice bonus that we get friends out of this too, because I think we all get along so well. We would be friends even if our kids weren't related. But we came together because they are.
Yeah. And we've got on vacations together, 2 years now, 2 summers now.
Yeah.
And then the kids all went to sleepaway camp together last year. So Zoe and Corinne were in the same cabin and got to spend like 2 solid weeks together.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
Yeah.
So how have you guys, okay, so for those that don't know, or Hillary, you kind of alluded to it, you Passion Project, you help with intended parent education, you write our wonderful blogs, and y'all each had your own separate story on the Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions blog, and then y'all's beautiful special story of the siblings being together. And that was in 2020. You've said you've gone on vacation, sleepaway camp. I mean, all of this stuff. How has their sibling relationship evolved, and what are maybe some of the words that you use as they've gotten older and it's not just a 2-year-old play date now, and they are at sleepaway camp? Like, do they say, yes, this is my sister? Like, what do they do?
I mean, mine are the youngest of it, and they don't seem to. I don't think they still don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, my hope is that, it's always just going to be a thing that they've known, and they'll sort of, grasp it a little bit more as they
figure out the science later.
Yeah. I mean, it's just not, they just don't care. Like, it's not a big deal to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they're just, they're kids, and they just see like other kids their age, and they have fun. I mean, I may have over explained it to Corinne, because I've used the term like half siblings, and then just the way that we explain egg donation, or the way we did that for her, because I think that's one thing, like, I've seen in talking to a lot of intended parents. I think, and this goes back a little bit to what Carrie said about other agencies not being willing to, facilitate a more open arrangement. I think a lot of it comes down to education. I think a lot of intended parents, and I think a lot of donors don't know that they have the option, and they don't know to ask. I think if you so I'm glad to see the shift changing. That was, a lot has happened in the last 8 or 9 years, but I think most intended parents have the intention of telling their kids. They just don't necessarily know where to start, because as a parent, there's for kids, it's just information, right? If you tell them early and you tell them, often enough, it just becomes part of their story. They're not going to remember that you revealed this big thing to them.
It's not a revelation. Like, it.
Yeah. It's just
and there's no emotion attached to it for them. Like, for as parents, if you still got stuff that you're working through, and all that, there's emotion for you because you've been through it. But to kids, it's just
your
information.
Mom, that's Dad. It's the end. Yeah.
So we started with books with Corinne when she was really little, and then as she's gotten older, we've kind of just explained it takes 3 ingredients to make a baby. Usually, from a mom, sperm from a mom, egg from, or sperm from a dad, egg from a mom and a uterus, and just said, my eggs didn't work. And so we needed help. And it took 3 people to bring you into this world. And so she understands that. And then I said, we refer to our donor by name in our house. So she knows name and information, and all that. And we've connected with her separately, but that, we've said, other families needed help too. And so same donor helped other families. And that's the connection with Zoe and Cooper. So.
Gotcha.
She's like, oh, okay, which I don't know if that means I get it or like, okay, cool. They're just like kids that I get to play with and we get to go on vacation, once a year. That's a lot of fun. I don't know.
Yep. I mean,
God, kids just make the world so much simpler. We love them for it. I mean, it doesn't have to be this hard.
No, it's absolutely not. And well, I'll tell you. I told Hillary the story the other night, and this. So I'm like now anticipating like the funny questions or their perspective whenever they get old enough to really sort of get all of that. So our older daughter is, result of IVF, but not of donor egg IVF. And she and her friend, moms and daughters had gone out on a shopping trip on Saturday. And her friend was also IVF, not donor egg. And she asked her mom, and she's like, was I fresh or frozen? The mom was like, well, yeah, we frozen embryo. She's like, you froze me? So she's like, I thought I was fresh, never frozen. So it's like,
I love kids so much. I mean, but this is why, like, I feel like just like you said, Hillary, education is so important. And I mean, and it just because it's not taboo anymore. It's just, it's just their story. That is so funny. So I have my eldest, and then I have twins, all biologically related to me, and then I was a surrogate. And my my first journey, it was one embryo that split, so then they have identical twins. And so my eldest, she never, anytime anybody was pregnant, she never asked, oh, is it a boy or a girl? She was like, is there one or two?
I love that.
Yep. It all just, I think at the end of the day, it's about, family and love and safety and security and, empowering these little people that, there's lots of different ways to bring them into the world and to create a family. And, it doesn't really matter how that happens. It's really just, once they're here, how they grow and thrive. And I having been on now, we're like 13 years past my original IVF journey and 8 years past, the egg donation IVF journey, that, I would not change a single thing, even the heartache that came before it, because I think that it has made me a better mother than I would have been otherwise. I'm more grateful and, just that we finally got here and that we get to do this. Like, I don't take a single thing for granted, even when they're driving me bananas.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So y'all are going to get me all teary on a Friday morning.
I know, right? I'm like, I'm not wearing waterproof mascara, but I feel the same way. When I wrote our story for the blog, I think I titled it "The Child We Were Meant to Have," and that's absolutely how I feel, because if it was the right path to parenthood for us, because if we hadn't gone down this road and if all the other things hadn't happened to get us to this point, we wouldn't have Corinne. And she just, she completes our family, and she's a joy.
I love
think that. She was, on some divine level, she was meant to be our daughter. We were meant to be her parents.
I love that. What would be one thing that you would say to any intended parent or even donor as they're kind of discerning perhaps this path for growing their family, or a donor, as she's
Um,
discerning how this is going to affect
yeah,
the
to
world?
donor, I would say just thank you. I mean, you have no idea the impact that you're making, because I literally would not have my daughter without our donor. And I have to say, I might get emotional talking about this, but I have been able to meet her. Corinne was able to meet her very recently, and she is lovely. She's lovely. She's a sweetheart. I was able to tell her thank. I mean, I told her thank you before, but it was completely differently. It was completely different being able to tell her thank you as a parent, and for her to, I think, maybe even for her to see like truly the impact that she made. I mean, as for donors, you have no idea the impact that you're making by helping to create a family. And then for intended parents, I would just say if you're struggling with anything like, concerns about being able to connect with a child that you're not genetically related to, being, the real mom, the real parent, um, absolutely, those are legitimate feelings. I mean, I felt them all, had to work through them. But it's completely different when you get on the other side of it. I mean, every hesitation I had was based in fear. And once I was able to move past that, and especially after I became a parent, none of it came to fruition. And my daughter, knowing, half siblings and knowing the donor, and as she gets older, she may care about that or she may not. But I just feel like at least we've opened the door for those opportunities. But if those are relationships she continues to have, it in no way negates my role as a parent. They're just more people that love my kid.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What about you, Carrie?
I mean, I don't think I can top, I agree with everything. That was, yeah, I, donors, I mean, I'm sure they have lots of different reasons why they choose to donate. Um, but at the base of it, I cannot imagine. Well, it just seems clear that, at the root of all of it is it's such a selfless thing to do. Like, it's just such I mean, it, thank you doesn't seem to really capture like what they're doing to help, people who create, and people who have already been through the ringer almost, like, by and large, like, we've been through a lot by the time, we get to, egg donation as the option that we're choosing. And so, I mean, I just hope that they realize, and I hope that our donor especially realizes just how grateful we are for that. And it's just a bonus that she's lovely on top of that. Like, she's just a good person, right? And that, our kids, that she's open to meeting. We didn't even hope or ask for that, to have an opportunity for them to know her or meet her while they were growing up. And, Hillary and I have talked, because they just recently met her in person, and Corinne met her in person, and everything went great. And I'm probably going to reach out to see. And it's funny, now that, Hillary is connected with her, there is that whole no anonymity. It turns out that her mom, the donor's mom, was besties in high school with one of my dearest friends.
This world is too small. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. How crazy is that? Yeah.
Gosh.
So it's, and I'm just still, like, really, the same thing, like, the curiosity about seeing, what similarities there were between, Corinne and the twins, I'm, real curious to see, what things that they may get from the donor and how like they are to the donor's daughter. It's really just fascinating and wonderful. And there is nothing that would give me any hesitation in telling any intended parents that there's no reason to not do this. If this is the way that you can make your family or complete your family.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you guys so much. Okay, final question, and it's a fun one. Okay. So we're all sitting here. We're all drinking our coffee. Everyone knows that I am the coffee addict. So literally and figuratively, what has filled your cup this morning? For me, it was coffee. And then I drive my son to school, and we have a particular playlist that we always jam out to. And this just starts my day beautifully. What about y'all?
Well, for me, it's coffee with sweet cream.
Yes, ma'am.
Like I gotta have my coffee in the morning. And then just the interaction with my daughter while I was getting ready and she was getting ready. She came in, and she had a muffin, a chocolate chip muffin for breakfast. And so she like leans in to give me a kiss, and it's all still like right here. And I'm just like, it's just it's the little moments, right? It's like it's just the everyday, because there was so long when I wondered if I would ever actually get to be a mom, and so yeah,
yes,
like it tasted pretty good.
Yeah, I love this question. Definitely, yes, coffee, and just the messiness of the mornings. For this morning, Cooper was in here. There's a piano behind me, so he was in here like plucking out a melody, and I was like, "Is he our musical kid?" Like he was literally just like composing music on the piano. Yeah. So, and then, Zoe wanted me to braid her hair this morning in a very particular way.
Of course. It's always like 5 minutes before you have to go out the door too. It's like, well, yes, I would love this intricate hairstyle, please.
Yes, exactly. And then, and Willow is home today because she's sick. And so she's a little extra snuggly and, it's all those things. And because there's a 5-year age gap between them, I'm so cognizant that, the little kid things are slipping away. They're not always going to be snuggly. They're, I always tell them, I was like, mamas, smell their babies' heads. And I was like, I need a good, sniff of my baby's heads, for forever. So it's the messiness of the mornings. It's loud and bananas around here. And
I love it. That's definitely a way to fill yourself up for sure. Well, you guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you just being willing to share your story and, educate those who are looking at doing this and, just show that it really is it's just one more way to create that happy family.
Absolutely.
100%.
You have just finished listening to an episode of Me, You, and Who. To find out more about egg donor and surrogate solutions, go to www.createahappyfamily.com.